Hero Hour. I am your host, Richard RJ Eskow, and joining us now is our friend, and to talk about a topic that is sadly not covered nearly enough in the media, as so many topics are not. This is the ongoing tragedy of the Rohingya in what is now known as the nation of Myanmar. Simon Billenness is the executive director of the International Campaign for the Rohingya, and he joins us once again now. So first of all, Simon, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Secondly, and more to the business at hand, am I right in feeling that the tragic situation of the Rohingya has disappeared to a large extent from media coverage?
Well, it has slipped somewhat out of the media, though it's no less serious. I mean, the Rohingya are still the subject of an ongoing genocide by Myanmar. And as many people remember, there are well over 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh right now.
So you have a situation where, and for those who may not know, I think most people do, but the Rohingya are a Muslim minority in what was once known as Burma, a Buddhist majority nation now called Myanmar. There is a great deal of ethnic nationalism underway in Myanmar. And of course, correct me if you feel that anything I'm saying here is wrong. And a horrific genocide has been ongoing against the Rohingya for years now. As you say, more than 1 million are now refugees, and I believe perhaps as few as 600,000 remain in the country at this their home country of Myanmar at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are now more Rohingya in Bangladesh than remain in Burma. And you know, as you described, the situation is one where you have a corrupt, unpopular, ineffective military that's essentially ruled Burma since a military coup in 1962. And like a lot of corrupt military dictatorships, they claim to be the champions of the country's dominant ethnic group and dominant religion. In which case, in Burma, we're talking about the majority ethnic Burmans and Buddhism. And so the military has used pervasive prejudice against the Rohingya and against Muslims in general to gain some modicum of popularity, particularly in the lead up to the elections in November, when again there are military-backed candidates fighting it out against Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, and also a number of political parties.
And one of the, to me, Simon Billenness, one of the disappointments, and for I think a lot of people, is that Aung San Suu Kyi spent many years in lockdown and home arrest, was considered a democratic hero for her political views, as well as political prisoner. I believe she got the Nobel Peace Prize, and yet has not chosen in any way to forcefully condemn either the genocide or the mistreatment before that of the Rohingya minority or the Karen Christian minority. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, and earlier this year, Aung San Suu Kyi traveled to The Hague, where she defended the Myanmar army as it faced charges of genocide at the International Court of Justice. And she sat there and she led the defense of the Myanmar military despite the overwhelming evidence of the military's war crimes, crimes against humanity, and also genocide against the Rohingya, which we saw, really clearly when it came to a head in August of 2017. That was when over 700,000 Rohingya were forced out of Myanmar into Bangladesh.
And you saw at that same time, if I recall correctly, slaughters, burnings of villages, rapes. I mean, generally the whole horrific palette of what genocides look like. I mean, it was extremely, as I recall, violent and inhumane, right?
Exactly. I mean, there was assaults and rapes of Rohingya women. Villages were burned down, and after a number of these Rohingya villages where they've driven out all of the inhabitants, they've now been bulldozed, and those areas have now been taken over by new settlers. So we have a situation where we've had the most recent eruption of genocide that we've seen for a decade. We've seen the largest forced example of forcible relocation of refugees when it comes to the Rohingya. And so, we've been at the International Campaign for the Rohingya. We've been working with a broad range of other groups, including Amnesty International, including Human Rights Watch, Refugees International, to put pressure on Myanmar, in particular, put pressure on the Myanmar military to end this genocide of the Rohingya, and put pressure on Myanmar to create the conditions under which the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh would want to return to Burma. And when you talk to Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, they're very clear. They don't want to return to Burma unless they have guarantees of safety from further acts of violence. They're allowed to return to their old villages and homes, and they want to return as long as their rights are restored, so they can vote in elections and participate in civic life. So, none of these conditions have been met so far, but we continue to put pressure on the Burmese military, and in particular on the Burmese military's business empire, in the form of sanctions, in the form of boycotts, in the form of a whole range of campaigns.
And that business empire extends to a great deal of trade with the United States, as I understand it, trade with, for example, the Japanese beer manufacturer, Kirin, I believe. So though any form of sanctions could have a significant effort in relieving the suffering of the Rohingya, couldn't they?
Indeed. I mean, by having such a large business empire, the Burmese military has created numerous targets for consumer pressure, shareholder pressure, media pressure. And so one of the campaigns that we've been waging is focused on the Japanese beverage giant Kirin that makes the Kirin Ichiban beer. But here in the United States, they also own New Belgium Brewery, which makes the noted Fat Tire beer, Voodoo Ranger. Kirin also owns a big chunk of the Brooklyn Brewery. They also own Four Roses Bourbon, based in Kentucky. And so, the company as a whole has been buying up craft brewers across the world, not just in the United States, but in the UK, in Australia, and New Zealand. And so we've been organizing lots of beer drinkers to boycott Kirin and boycott Kirin brands. And it's been very effective in putting pressure on Kirin to pull out of these joint ventures that they have with the Burmese military, which include two of the largest breweries inside Burma.
That's interesting. And are there any other, well, let me put it this way. And again, we're talking with Simon Billenness, Executive Director of the International Campaign for the Rohingya. Are there any other things people should know or perhaps do in terms of boycotting? Should they boycott Kirin products at this point? Should they write to Kirin? Are there other brands that they should be aware of?
Yeah, if you go on our website for the international campaign for the Rohingya, the action that we have there is our petition to Kirin, which includes a boycott of all of Kirin's brands. We've all the Burmese military dominates the mining and trading of gems from Burma, most notably rubies and also jade. And so we've been putting pressure on major jewelers, including the luxury jeweler Harry Winston,
Right.
which is owned by Swatch of Switzerland, also the online jeweler Angara. And we found on their online catalogs examples of Burmese gems, and we've been organizing people to contact these companies, also post on their social media, on their Facebook accounts, to urge them to stop buying these genocide gems that profit the Myanmar military.
You're also, Simon Billenness, you're also, I believe, engaged in a campaign of writing to the U.S. government to declare this genocide against the Rohingya what it is, which is a genocide. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, the U.S. State Department, hired researchers to investigate whether the Myanmar government's atrocities against the Rohingya constitute, war crimes, constitute crimes against humanity, or constitute genocide. And the State Department's own investigation, own report, found that this does indeed constitute genocide. And so we've been, we launched a petition to call on Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to reach a determination this is in fact genocide against the Rohingya. And there's just been a lot of pressure in Congress. A group of 4 senators led by Ed Markey have a bill in Congress right now that would direct the State Department to make this genocide determination and to mobilize all the efforts the U.S. government can do in these cases to end these kinds of mass atrocities.
And it seems to me that beyond the very obvious moral clarion call to end this horrific treatment of the Rohingya, there's another principle at work here too, which is if one nation is allowed to commit a genocide against its own people, a minority group within it, then it seems to me it creates the precedent within the international community that you can do that, get away with it, maintain your business relationships, your trade relationships, your diplomatic relationships, that the world's dominant power, the United States, will do nothing, will shrug his shoulder and look away. So it seems to me that not only to save lives and restore decency and to protect a vulnerable people must we do this, but it seems to me we also must do this because otherwise we're setting a precedent that's too horrific to consider when it comes to the future.
Absolutely, and this is why we've come together with a variety of groups to form a coalition and campaign that we call No Business with Genocide. And what we do with the No Business with Genocide campaign is we're putting pressure on companies to adopt a policy that they will not do business with governments that engage in genocide or crimes against humanity. And it's been a starting point to put a broad range of media, consumer, and shareholder pressure on these companies. We work with a group of shareholders in Chevron, which is the largest U.S. investor in Burma and has been for over a couple of decades, to press Chevron to adopt this policy. And as a result of this pressure, Chevron has publicly said that they're raising human rights issues directly with the Myanmar government, which is exactly the point of the campaign. And we'd also been using this campaign again to go after the Burmese military's business interests. to make it very clear that companies should not have as their business partner a military that's currently on trial on charges of genocide at the International Court of Justice. So that's been, I think, very effective in making the Burmese military's business interests radioactive to a broad range of investors. And now we're going after those companies that entered into these business partnerships with the Myanmar military before the August 2017 attacks against the Rohingya, and so we're now going after existing business that the Myanmar military does.
And since these generals, I think, profit personally from these business interests, is getting them where they live, so to speak. So, Simon, where can people go to find out more about your work and perhaps do something about this?
Absolutely. Check out our website at the International Campaign for the Rohingya. It's at rohingyacampaign.org. And you'll find there a link to the petition to Kirin. If you sign that petition, put in your email address, you'll get on our email list, and you'll receive tailored actions of actions you can take, whether it's lobbying Congress, whether it's boycotting specific companies, whether it's checking out new reports and new interviews that shed light on what's going on inside Burma and what's happening with the Rohingya.
Well, it's such important work, Simon. I thank you for doing that. Again, we've been talking with Simon Billenness, Executive Director of the International Campaign for the Rohingya. Thank you for all your efforts in this area, and thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for your time.
And we'll be right back after this. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.